Yeah.
Right, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1. Hello. Good afternoon. My name's Tosca Jackson, and we are doing Gritty Nitty Podcast once again. I'm pretty sure this is episode 9, and we've decided to really roll out the carpet today.
Aye.
And we're going to do fatherhood. And I think everyone around here is a father.
Yeah.
I'm a father.
Grandfather.
And a we've got a granddad.
A couple of granddads.
Couple of granddads. If you hear a voice
Aye.
and not see a man, that is the mysterious Steve Milton. He's sitting to my right, but you can't see him. But he's
A granddad.
He's a granddad, and he's also administering, pulling the strings. He usually pulls the strings up there behind the desk, but today he's just offering words of wisdom. So if we go around the rooms and introduce ourselves, maybe we'll introduce ourselves and tell me how many children we have, because we're all fathers. Right, my name's Tosca Jackson. I have 2 daughters.
My name is Mark Dempster, and I've got a son and a daughter.
My name's Matt Scott, and I've got 1 daughter.
My name's Michael Emmett, and I've got 4 daughters and 8 grandchildren.
Whoa! He trumped us, man. He's trumped.
I think you're the winner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, Steve.
What about you,
so
Steve?
I'm Steve. I've got a son, Harry, who is nearly 33. He's a stepson, but I've been with him since he was 1. So I consider him to be my son. I've got a daughter, Zoe, who's just turned 26. And I've got a grandson, Elijah, who lives in China, and he is coming up for 2.5.
Whoa!
Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay,
Beautiful.
I want to throw this question out there. What is your biggest? It's quite a broad one. It's not quite a big one. But what was your biggest misconception about being a father, and what's the biggest lesson you've learned? I'll start that to my left, but anyone can chime in.
Okay, right. So the biggest lesson, lessons. So I mean, I grew up obviously with not obviously. I grew up with a father who was an alcoholic, and my grandfather was an alcoholic. So what was modelled to me from a young age was a lot of dysfunctional behaviour. So the lessons that I've learned, because my kids have never seen me drinking or using drugs, I've been in recovery the whole time, so I've been able to be a much more emotionally present. But the lesson within it all is that I had no idea really, I had no idea really how to be a father, and how to, based on how fatherhood was modelled to me, and I've had the ability to try and be as sort of real and honest, and I mean by that real and honest, try to be as authentic as I can be as a father. Misconceptions, I don't know misconceptions. What are the misconceptions? Maybe there's a misconception that fatherhood would be sort of, I mean, even the birth thing in my son, like, oh, you've got to be at the birth. You've got to be at the birth and see the birth of your son. But actually, when I seen the birth of my son, there was a misconception. Like, oh, I was quite freaked out by the amount of blood and the thing. But actually, there was a sort of an elation within it. But there was also this sort of like, oh, right, that was a misconception that it was easy. Maybe that fatherhood somehow was easy. I found it very difficult. I found it very difficult at times. Right now, my daughter's not speaking to me. That's really difficult. That she's shut off from me at the moment. I've got to wait and let go. So there's I guess that's, yeah. I'll hand it over.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a new dad, so I haven't really experienced that much yet. You know, my daughter's only 2.5, so I'm like a new father. It definitely hasn't been easy, and I think I kind of was scared. You know, like the misconception. The sort of ideas of doing it was definitely something that I was really sort of worried about. So yeah, and it's been really difficult, and it's been amazing. It's been the best thing I've ever done, but the hardest thing I've ever done, for sure. And I guess, like what I was saying before, like being in recovery and everything has made it a million times easier. Because when I first when we first had the baby, I was definitely still drinking a lot, and I was still, you know, not not sleeping and partying loads and coming back home and not really being around mentally, and it was definitely something which I didn't want to continue doing. I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be that dad that was a complete mess head and was an alcoholic, and I wanted to make a change and do it when she's really young, so she would never think of me like that. And I feel like I've done that, and touch wood, I can continue to be a good dad and not, you know, not let her down, basically. And that's what that's where I'm at the moment. You know what I mean? I'm quite new to it, but I'm loving it. I love being a dad. It's great. I love it. It's the best thing ever.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I suppose for me, I sort of cut off from life when I was about 5 or 6 by something that happened to me. So I think I lost my alignment. So when I was 10 or 11, I thought it was normal to want to put your hand down a girl's knickers and things like that, which is, I'm not showing off about it, but that's what I thought. So way beyond my years, but emotionally very childlike. So we get told when we're 18, we leave school, 19, I think you can have a car, you're allowed to buy a drink, you get married and you have children. I suppose that's what we was told. I don't know, that's what it was about. So when I had my children, which I absolutely adore my kids, but my eldest daughter was 40. So I wasn't ready. I wasn't at all ready. And I'd been involved with abortions and things like that, which really today really hurt me. And so my children came along, and all of a sudden the addiction was really on its way with the drugs, and so I messed up, and it hurt me because it was the most precious thing to me. So I was dysfunctional. I couldn't even look at them in the eyes, and I remember when I got arrested, the first thing I thought about was my 3 kids, you know. And I said it to the arresting officer. I said, "Oh, it's my kids, mate," and because I didn't equate that in the way I was, it would be money to spoil them, to keep them away from me, or you know, I've only once flown with my children on an aeroplane. I would always go on holiday at a different time, or we travel. It was never that conclusion. There was never that conclusion, and so it messed me up. When my grandchildren came, and I was forced into, I don't mean forced badly, but circumstances meant that I had to turn up as a grandfather, and it was the most wonderful moment of my life, because I have 8 grandchildren. I'm their pappy, yeah, and because things were really tough for me as they was all born, the only thing I could do was give them unconditional love, and I received it back. So there's no, when I'm with my grandchildren, the eldest is 16, the youngest is 1. There's that spirit that's between us that's so cool and nice that it fills my heart up. So I would say I'm a very self-praise is no praise, but I was born to be a granddad. And my children, I've got 4 girls, and they're tricky. You know, I didn't understand really, and my girls had to be never have sex, keep away from boys, totally. And they grew, and they gave me these wonderful grandchildren, and I really thank God for their mother, yeah. But today my children are my best friends. I'm really pally with my kids, and the love that I get from my grandchildren. I wasn't taught how to be a dad. I wasn't taught how to be a dad. Not that my dad was whatever, but. My mother was a great mother, but the teaching from my father, I sat in a prison cell with him. So, you know, it was pretty tricky. And I think fatherhood for me today is all based on being there. Your time is key. You know, to give them time is key, and to give love away freely and to receive it back, I think formulates a very healthy relationship, because I never had it with my 3 children. Well, I've got 4 children.
Well, I'm going to dive in.
Dive in, bro.
Dive in.
Well, so I suppose my biggest misconception was that it was going to be hard, and my biggest misconception that it was going to be easy. And it's kind of like, it's a dichotomy that to this day sort of misses the point. And the point is that it's a relationship that's not really about me. And was the big lesson in it. It was, you know, it was kind of, you know, with my first daughter, who's 31, you know, my first daughter taught me a lot about my second daughter. with my first daughter, what I thought was that it was about solutions, that I had to find solutions, and generally those solutions were to make me feel better. Those solutions were about, the kind of hole in my soul, the relationship I had with my parents, and what I thought that they needed. And so I'd run around with my eldest just trying to fix everything. And and I never really listened to her. Do you know what I mean? I kind of had this this sort of misconception that, if I knew best. And it's funny because what I'm kind of learning, and I'm really reminded of this on a daily basis, that each generation that comes along is smarter than the one before. So I'm kind of a Gen X, just a Gen X, and before me was the baby boomers, and then you've got the millennials after that, and then you've got the Gen Z. And the Gen Z, my 19-year-old, is one of the smartest people I know. And I know that because I've got another millennial's daughter. And what I've had to kind of do, I've had to kind of realise that they have an understanding of life of their own, and really it's about me to encourage that. And it took me a long time. I was still trying to fix my daughter up until, my eldest, up until she was 15, until she sort of said, you know what, why don't you just fuck off, sort of thing. She didn't say it in that way, but her behaviour sort of said it. And it was kind of like, and so what I kind of realised is that it isn't about solutions, it's about support. It's about support. For me, in my relationship with my kids, it's about support and a level of intimacy that they can express who they are, or trying to create an environment of that. Whether I do that or not is another matter. I'm kind of not quite sure. But, the situations I had with my eldest up until she was 21 was I was still trying to fix stuff. She left university and came to live with me, and I can remember, got to get a job. Everyone's got to get a job, because I remember my old man sort of saying, by the time I come back from my holiday, you better have a job. Do you know what I mean? And it was kind of, that was, and then I read her CV. I got her a job somewhere, and I read her CV, and it kind of, and I got her a job doing PR at a radio station. And I read her CV. I said, oh, give me your CV. That job's yours. Just give me your CV. And then I went in her room and read it. And it was kind of like, it wasn't about radio. It wasn't about the stuff I was interested in. The first line was, I'm a fashion-obsessed person. Do you know what I mean? She didn't give a fuck about that other stuff that I did about. And it was really about, how do I support her in that? And, and so, my misconceptions was that, my big misconception was that it was about fixing. And it's not, for me in my relationship with my kids, it's not about fixing, it's about supporting. And I think that my youngest, who's just turned 19, coming back from Costa Rica, where she'd been volunteering, where I would have sort of said, you want to volunteer in Costa Rica? What the fuck do you want to do that? You know what I mean? Because that's me, And my younger daughter, who turned around and said to me, well, I want to go to university, I want to study Spanish and politics. And you know what my thinking is? My thinking is, well, if you want to learn Spanish, I'll give you a few quid, just go and live there for 6 months. Do you know what I mean? Because that's how I see it. But what I've kind of learned is the fact that I really need to listen to them. And sometimes it's a load of old tush that comes out of their mouth. Do you know what I mean? It's absolute rubbish. It's kind of, really? But, they're individuals living a life of their own, and and it's my job as one of my jobs as their father to support them in those endeavours, and and kind of nothing more than that. And if they want some sort of advice, all I can tell them is my experience. and not make that some sort of mantra.
Yeah.
You know, don't do that, and if you do this, and blah blah blah. Because you know, because all of us, no matter who we are, have to live with the consequences of what it is we do. That's me. What about you, Steve?
Misconception about being a father. I don't think I really overthought it too much at the beginning, but I've certainly had a few surprises of like, it wasn't meant to be like this. I remember when my son, you know, he was right in the thick of being a teenager, and I was like in the midst of my addiction as well, and it's like two things not very compatible. And I remember like, and I wasn't very sane at the time, but just thinking, do you know what, I'm completely and utterly out of my depth here. I've got no idea how to do this. But there's been other moments that have been, do you know what, this is fucking great. This is brilliant. And just really enjoying the moment. I mean, there was a moment in you know, so I was sober a few years, and I went to China to go and see my son. I went with my wife as well. And it was the first time that I'd had with him, really, since I'd been in recovery. And we were riding motorbikes through the mountains. And there was a moment when I just sort of pulled up alongside him. We didn't have any helmets on or anything. And I looked across at him, and I'd been a shit father at times to him, you know, and I'd been absent and not present and all of that stuff. And probably still harbouring a bit of guilt and regret, not a bit, a lot.
Yeah.
There was this moment when I looked round at him, so we were like riding through these villages in the mountain, and he was just there on the motorbike, with his hair blowing in the wind, and he was just like totally in the moment. There was like no resentment towards me. There was none of that. We'd had fights, and you know, we'd been at each other's throats for years, and that was all
gone.
It was all gone. And there was just this thing. It's like, do you know what? This is just one of these moments that has been set up for me. Harry's not aware of it. Nobody else is aware of it. This is just like one of these moments of joy that you can't put on a to-do list. It just came, and then it's like still with me today. And I you know, I share it in meetings and when I can, like opportunities like this.
Yeah.
So I had no perception that fatherhood would give me moments like that. So I've had I've had a variety of experiences of or misconceptions. Is the word that you'd say.
That's the gold, Steve. That's the gold. What you just said there. That's definitely the gold, isn't it, guys? It's like that's the stuff. That's.
I know I'm off camera. There's one final bit, if you'd allow me. So one thing that's going through my head at the moment about fatherhood, is this concept of being like a really great dad or a really great father. How do I be like a great family member, and beyond how I always used to think of it as the provider, the person who'd give a few quid to go and sort something out, or you know, get a text message from my daughter to sort something out, and I'd go, you know, Mr. Fix It, basically. It's like how can my idea of being a father extend over and above that? Because I think it's been, you know, I think I've been a good dad for the last few years, but you know, how do I take it to the next level? So I've got misconceptions about that as well, and probably quite immature thinking. So there's different levels of fatherhood.
And like I said, the Mr. Fix It was where I come from. It was kind of like, and if my kids got into any sort of, you know, just into any sort of difficulty, I used to panic. You know, I used to sort of like, you know, and it's, and now I sort of come from a place, because of the experience I've had, is that it will get sorted out. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't need me there in the mix, you know, orchestrating and like I know best. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like what I know about life, I think you can put on the back of a postage stamp, you know, so it's just easier, you know, it's just easier to kind of just support, just kind of get in there. I mean, has anyone had any kind of serious showdowns with their kids? You know, you were talking.
Yeah, I've just had a serious showdown with my daughter, and it well, she's got an impression of me from before, and the way I've been, I guess, in relation, because I'm not with with her mother now. And
how old is your daughter?
She's now 16. So, and and you know, so she's not speaking to me at the moment. But so I've had to let go of like text her, and I left a few messages. I was going to write a letter and put it through the door, but I've got to let go because it really hurts. I mean, what Steve was saying too about those moments, though, and why I said the gold. There's moments with my son where I'm really, really close. My son closer than I've ever. And this is the thing about, I guess, love. Really, I've felt a deeper love for my children than I've ever felt for anyone. There's no doubt. And there's no doubt it took me out my self-centeredness, because by nature I'm very self-centered, and so I remember once even being in the Grand Canyon, and I remember getting lost. I mean, this is a nutty bit. I got lost in the Grand. I was going down to this village, a Native American village called Havasupai, and I got lost 9 miles down this Grand Canyon. I took the wrong road, and as I was walking up this path, which was the wrong path that went nowhere really, my sons and my daughter wasn't born at the time, but the image of my son's little face came into my mind's eye really strong, and the voice of my intuition said, you better get yourself out of this canyon, you better get some water, you better get and you know, because that the love that you've got for that child is you know, you need to get out of the, you know, so I've had conflict. I've not had conflict so much with my son at all. I got on, but daughters are more difficult. I mean, look, I'm saying it's more difficult. It's more complex with daughters.
So you said something. Can I just pull you back?
Yeah,
you said something. You said she has this impression of you.
Yeah,
what impression does she have?
The impression I had, because me and her mother were it was a tumultuous relationship, and there was a lot of like heated, high octane arguments, and she remembers some of that, and but also the difficulty is she's been living with her mother, and her mother gives her impression of how I am as a man, and so she witnesses how I am as a man when she comes and sees me, and you know, I've been really close with her throughout all the years, but she sees me as somebody who's very heated. And now I admit that I can get my and this is the difficulty I've found in fatherhood really, is that I've always had this thing that I've had this thing where you should be able to keep your temper, be really relaxed, not really relaxed, but we don't get angry. So for example, say I'd be in the car and my daughter be in the car, or someday there was a guy. I was going to the supermarket and there was a guy peeing on the side near the supermarket, right? And I was passing with my daughter, and I thought, you can't be just peeing on the thing. So because I'm the way I am as a person, I'm like having a word with a guy. She's like freaking out because she's thinking I'm going to get stabbed or something's going to happen to me. And these incidents, or I'd be maybe in the car and there'd be some road rage incident, and so she, you know, and I'm saying, look, yeah, you know, this is, you know, I'm hot tempered, but I'm asking you to forgive some of those, because objectively in all these other occasions, but children, it's difficult because when kids are young, their ego, it's not until they're older that they stop identifying that they're the centre of the universe. Do you know what I mean? It's like the cognition only, when they're 16, 17, they start to realise, yeah, there's a bigger world, or, well, 14, 15 really. But so she's pretty unforgiving.
Can I ask you a question which leads me to something else?
Aye.
So me and my daughter were walking around this thing called Beyond Canyon in LA this year. Yeah. And, you know, she's 19. And what she said to me is, you're too dramatic.
Right.
She said, there's too much drama from you. Right? Yeah?
Aye.
And is it hard, right? Yeah.
Aye.
For you to hear what your daughter says?
Yeah, I think, right, here's the thing, guys, right? When I'm having this conversation, we're in this park down in Balham, and she starts to say this stuff. She says, "Look, Dad, it's like this. I want you, you know." So I'm saying, so the therapy head is like, you know, therapist, right? I hear you, I hear you, just everything's cool. Look, just I want to know, you know. But inside, the sort of emotionally immature part really is going reactively. It's
Fuck
going
off.
Yeah, it's going fuck off, right? She's feeling the body language, and then I am like the child. So she's like the 16, 17-year-old daughter, and I'm like 14 or 15. So I've got to get into the adult. I'm stuck in the child. Yeah. How do I jump back into the adult? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And that's the challenge, right? That is definitely that's the shadow. Is the shadow in me? Is I could sabotage. There's two paths. There's the potential to try and let go of my ego and let go of my reactivity in that moment. But there's some part of me feeling threatened or feeling she's you know, there's some part of me, and I know what I've got to do, but actually doing it's a completely, and I can talk the talk and I can advise other people all day long, we should do this, but what's it like in reality for me? Yeah, that's bang on what you said, Tosca.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. I'm a 58-year-old man. I'm acting like a 14-year-old, you know.
Yeah.
There's good days and bad days, isn't it?
Yeah, there are good days. And Michael, can you identify?
Cool, with all of it. So because I've been around doing it for quite a long time now, 40 years, I've learnt more in the last sort of 5 or 10 years than I did in that duration of time. So I was just sitting here thinking about what I used to do, what you were saying about controlling the kids. So private school, piano, horse riding, tennis. And then I went away for a while, and when I come back, it didn't exist. So it was me wanting them to be what I wanted them to be. And there was another part that was educational as well, because there was some talented kids in there. But from the dysfunction of me and their mother, my children sort of alluded to men and got married very young, or got in relationships and had children very young, barring my middle daughter. Lily, she's only just had children. So that freaked me out. And I'd lost control. That before I sort of left them for a few years, they were kids who weren't even on their periods. So I'm coming home now. They've got boobsies, and there's the mother in the house and the 3 children, and it's all you know, they're having periods and there's boyfriends, and I'm thinking, hold on a minute, this is not how it was. You can't do that. What do you mean you can't do that? We're not doing that. So they're sneaking in and out the house. And my youngest daughter, who's an absolute belter, they're all belters, she started drinking at a very young age, and she'd sneak out the house. And she'd sneak it back in, and the mother wouldn't shop the business. So I used to lock the door. And I'd come down and find her, sort of, she'd been, where you been, sort of thing. Nothing bad, but it was starting to show. And I lost control of it. I lost total control. And then fellas came in, and they was with guys. And I'd lost my little girls who used to sit on my knee. They started having sex. They don't want to kiss their father. They don't want to cuddle dad no more. And it wasn't until, and I struggled with it. And I'm still trying to control them and tell them to do this. And when everything changed for me, and I don't want to harp on that because it's making it about me again, but the guy that had on the pedestal who done this and done that is on his arse. And in a way, it's been the most refreshing part of the relationship, because I had to reach out to my kids. I needed my kids, yeah? And as much as they was angry with me, past the post. Every single one of them. The loyalty and love that they showed me was incredible. And the gift of the grandchildren has made me understand that they come to me for advice, all of them nowadays. Yeah. They all phone me, Dad, what do you think about that? Not, you do it this way. Dad, what do you think? And I say, well, here's my opinion. You can take it or leave it. And it creates a constructive relationship. So they still tell me they love me every day. They're on the phone. I've just come through a lung cancer. And they was absolutely spot on. Yeah. Now, the grandchildren I've got, there's 2 young granddaughters, Thank God I never had no sons. And I've got 6 grandsons. And I'm looking at them all grow. The 2 granddaughters are absolute. It's what I missed in my 3 kids growing up. Way beyond the intelligence that I'm used to. You're bright kids, talking Mandarin and listening Mandarin and speaking Spanish, and I'm loving it. What I wanted for my kids, because I wanted it to do it for me. They're doing it, they're not doing it for me. And the talent's beautiful, and the love's there, and it's sort of amalgamated us all back together again, where my children now have a greater relationship with me, and I don't tell them what to do, because if I do, they go, Dad, drop us out. You know, I spoil them rotten. And today, there's a sense of sort of unity in love. Yeah, we all share each other's moods. We all go out and do things. We travel together. We eat together. We have fun together. But there's still that. We all know what women are like, without being disrespectful to women. So I've got.
Isn't that disrespectful?
But that could be something positive and good. That could be. So I've had to learn that. No, I love women, as you know. I'm just talking about Easy Tiger. I think I flushed up with it. It's got really hot in here. Steve, can you edit that bit? Of course. But just to land, so that I can still get that. Oh yeah. And so I done some terrible things. I sort of went out with different women, and it upset my kids. And, you know, I had an affair that created another child. They've tried their hardest to befriend that child. They've done extremely well. And she's my youngest daughter, who I don't really have a lot to do with. Well, I don't have anything to do with her at the moment. So that hurts me, because I love kids. I love other people's children as well. But my grandchildren have enabled me to have a relationship with my 3 girls now, which is nice. I get invited to the football. Daddy, do this. Come over here. Do this. I cook with them. I love my grandchildren. But my 2 granddaughters are something that I cherish them all. But these 2 young girls, one lives in southern Spain, one lives in Surrey. They're both here. I'm going out to dinner with them on Friday. I cannot wait. And they're 13, and I sit and I listen, and the things that I learn from these 2 young girls helps me grow as a person, as a rather than me being in control. So I've relinquished. It was difficult. They were my girls, right, and they still are my girls, but it's not my business what they do. All I can do is be there. It is my business what they do, I suppose, a little bit, but is be there to guide them. And if they fall, it's where they hurt themselves, and they grow in life. You got to let your kids fall. You got to let your kids make mistakes. You know, I used to cover mine up all the time with all madness, and today it's growing nicely.
Okay.
I was born to be a granddad.
I like that. So Matt, obviously 2.5 years in, but is there anything that resonates with you about maybe your experience with, not maybe with your daughter, but maybe with your own parents or your own sense of
It's funny,
fatherhood?
all this for me is like lessons in advance of, so I can use these lessons for the future.
Yeah.
This is really interesting for me because I'm a new dad, and hearing your stories about, you know, what happens as they get older and how you deal with them being teenagers and how they completely become, you know, independent. At the moment, you know, my daughter is completely dependent on us, obviously, and she's just learning about the world, and it's amazing to see it. It's the most amazing thing ever, teaching her about, you know, everything, just showing her the world, and so I can't even fathom her being in the situation where she's gonna be an independent person and go and do her own thing. But I can't wait for that. But I know, I mean, obviously it's really difficult to experience that, and hearing you guys' stories and, you know, experiences is making me think more, and hopefully even, you know, 10 years down the line I'll remember these kind of things about, you know, you can't always overreact, and it's not all about you, and it's about them, and it's about them being their own person. And, you know, I felt like that a lot when I was little. As soon as I got old enough to sort of do anything, I was like, I'm me. I don't care about anyone else. Like, I'm going to do this. And that's, you know, when it came to my passion and my career, and the whole time my dad was like, whatever you do, like, don't do it. Whatever you do, don't work in music. So, and I was like, right, well, I'm definitely doing it then. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, but he always supported me. Like, but he always. My parents were both just like they were very supportive, but they always said, you're not going to do it as a career. Like, obviously, you got to have plan B. You've got to get a real job. You've got to do all this. And I was like, yeah, but okay, but whatever. Do you know what I mean? And I just stuck to it, and I'm really lucky that I've managed to do it, as a career. But I feel like, it definitely gave me more like energy to just prove them wrong as well. Like, I feel like them I don't know, maybe if they were like, just do what you want, like, you'll be a DJ, you'll be a producer, maybe I wouldn't be. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, because it kind of gave me even more drive to like.
And if you're a defiant person, that's exactly the thing that you need to rebound off.
Yeah, but I'd also kind of spin that back on its head to fatherhood, because I think that what you're saying, Matt, is your mum and dad were really invested in the outcome.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're really invested in the outcome. You're going to do this, and if you're going to do this, you know what I mean? You've got to do, it's got to work, and if it's not going to work, you know what I mean? And I think that, especially with my eldest girl, I thought it was a reflection on me. Yeah.
What if it works or not?
Yeah, it doesn't work.
That's right.
Right. So, and I thought it was a reflection on me. So it's kind of like, well, if you're going to do that, and that's really difficult, and it's shit, and it doesn't work out, then people are going to think I'm a bad dad.
For sure, that's it.
I know. And
even their grades in school.
Which means you've got to improve.
But, isn't it interesting with the parents as well? Look, my parents, the limitation, basically, they would think that I could only achieve this based on my academics, like at school and stuff. But I had ADHD back in school, so I wasn't really concentrating. But the thing is,
was that diagnosed?
They would say.
Everyone's got ADHD.
I know.
And they're on the spectrum.
I know. Forget the violin. More. I'm narcissistic personality. I'm borderline. The need disorder. Come on, milk it. But
there you are.
But the limitation, I guess what it is they and my mum still does it really to some degree. Go, oh no, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, you couldn't write a book, you couldn't do because that's the limitations of their imagination, right? They could only see. The most you could achieve, Mark, is becoming an electrician, right? That'd be it. If you got a job as an electrician, that'd be it. And just think yourself lucky, And if I say, oh no, actually, I'd like to write a book, I'd like to go set up a practice in Harley Street, I'd like to do So it's like, so what do I do for my kids really around? And how do you keep it realistic, as well, right? Because they're not going to be. Well, my son's not going to be Ronaldo. He's not going to be. He's not. I can see he's not.
But Ronaldo is Ronaldo, right?
Do you think Ronaldo's an electrician, Mark?
Sorry,
it's okay to be an electrician. Just in case there's any electricians out there watching, it's a very good job.
I know, but it's funny how our parents, isn't it, and about what as fathers, what we do based on their own. Look, those the transgenerational influences, right? In Glasgow, poor working class family, no one bought their own house back then. No one had any money, right? So I was like the first to buy my own house and stuff like that. It's funny that the influence. You could only achieve this, you could only achieve that, because they couldn't see any, because they were limited, and yet. And then only by being in recovery, I started to think, well, what could I achieve? Because when you're free from the addiction, you can think, well, what could you achieve? You could do this, you could do that. There's a number of things. It's only how I restrict myself. Really, I mean, obviously, they'll say I can't become a brain surgeon, but maybe I could become a brain surgeon if I went. It's not. If I applied.
You went to brain surgery school.
Yeah, if you went and became a doctor, like you see all the time, guys. We get into recovery, and people that are they've spent years in prison. Next month they're a barrister, and they're trained as a barrister. They're a famous comedian. It's like, it's just about what we feel that our passion about what we think we can achieve.
Having the courage and the even a little bit of confidence to go, do you know what, I'm going to give this a go.
I give it a go. And I guess as parents, it's about providing a loving, nurturing platform, environment to let them grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah, that's right. That's the bit I wanted to jump on.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
You know, we should teach them. I try to teach my grandchildren to be kind.
Yeah.
I teach them about the poor. Yeah. I teach them that money's not there to be wasted. You have to save it. You know, I have to teach, and I like to mention these. I never used to say that to my kids. Have what you like, do this, do that. We'll buy you a car. All nonsense because of me. Yeah, and I think the most kindest thing that I really encourage the work I do with them. They see about the homeless shelters. They see all that sort of stuff, and I take them with me. And I say, look, this is. Well, I don't take them with me. I used to take my daughters with me, but my children are aware of what I try to do in the prisons, and I'm not making myself a big shot here. I feed the homeless, so well, a lot of people do. But it's that kindness of learning to give one's time. You know, at Christmas, they all get spoiled, and I say, why don't you give one of those presents away? All of you sitting here, imagine what it's like. There's 8 grandchildren. Give one of those presents away. What about? I say, how about that one? The best one. So it's just teaching them, and I just think with today's generation of what they've got on view with social media, what they can be taught, what they can be infiltrated, and I think the wonderful thing for me, and I sort of said about my dad being in prison with him. My dad was a great dad. I weren't. My dad was a great father. He was a great dad in discipline and really on point. I wasn't because of my own stuff. But I think what I try to teach my kids today and my grandchildren is about love. It's about the action of doing kindness. And I think that is a key. And I press it in all the time. Are you being kind? Are you saying your prayers? Are you being thoughtful at school? I mean, my eldest grandson is so bright that he's doing his computer. He lives in Spain. So he's doing computer science or whatever that is. And so he forgets his own work. And he's got everyone's saying, Pad, you've got to get over this. You've got to do this. This is you. He's put pressure on him. He's telling me the last time he was here, we have great conversations. Got great conversations. And he forgot to take the homework home, right? So he broke into the computer and got the answers out. Right, but copied them answer for answer. Sorry, Paddy, I know you're going to get the needle. but the teacher at the school said it was harder to get the answers than to pass the exam. Yeah, it was harder to get the answers. So they're immersed in it. But what frightens me is that they're too immersed in that stuff on their phone constantly. My youngest, you know, he's 3. He goes, takes the phone and he's having a look at. So there's a concern. I think all we've got to do is love. You got it bang right. It's not about us. It's about them.
Yeah, and just what you were saying, and I think that the point that I'm trying to make in this is really where we go emotionally.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one. That is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That is brilliant.
And it is the shame.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah, and it
that's
is
true.
the guilt.
That's true.
And the
Tosca.
shame, the shame's there, eyes there.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
the
the shame.
Toxic shame.
Yeah, it's the guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the kind of like how desperately I need,
you to do well.
Yeah.
So we're raising the bar constantly.
Yeah, the assurance.
Absolutely.
And how do I drop that?
Yeah,
How do I
absolutely.
drop that
Yeah.
investment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's tough. Yeah, absolutely. That's the bit. That's the bit because it's all about me otherwise.
Yeah.
And then it's the blame on them. It's a great way. So we got to drop that. I think my grandchildren are diluted that in me.
Yeah, because you don't have it's a third
control,
party
yeah,
relationship.
absolutely.
It doesn't work in that way. But Mark's in an interesting dilemma right now. Right, it's kind of like, how can we help you in this? So what my problem was with my eldest, I couldn't stop fucking losing it.
Yeah, right. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Your own frustrations. Yeah.
It always came back to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so what would happen would be, it's kind of like, I just couldn't hold it down.
Yeah.
I was so invested, in her, in what I thought doing well was, which is some sort of made up sort of ridiculous notion that I've got anyway.
Yeah,
Do you know
for
what I mean?
sure,
I'm not the arbitrator.
No, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Get
But
it.
I've got it kind of in my head.
Yeah.
And it caused me a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
It caused me a lot of pain. I'd leak out and then I'd threaten.
Mm.
You know, I'd threaten, if you don't
Me
do
too.
this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff. So in pursuit of that, you're now at crossroads with your daughter, and I don't want you...
Yeah. To mimic the
You
same
know
as
what I
what
mean?
you've
Yeah,
experienced.
I don't want you
Yeah.
to go through that.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think how we
As
can,
as
a group of men, can kind of, you know, to help you in pursuit of
Yeah.
that.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, that's good.
When was the last time you spoke to her?
7 weeks ago now, and I think how I leaked. That's a good expression. I think my shame and how I leaked out was I was saying basically, you've got to forgive me for this stuff, and if you can't forgive me, then we've not got a relationship. So I've you know, if I'm yeah,
It's lovely, I get it.
ouch,
I've done it. I've done it.
And I've done it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost like, so it's conditional. You've got to like forget. And then I'm like, oh no, you can't say it like that. You can't say it like that. So they're trying to say it in a different bit, but I'm saying the same thing. Really,
Absolutely.
is you've got. And really what I've got to do is let go of all that.
That's what you have got to do.
I've got to let go, let God, whatever my belief is in a higher power, or what, you know. And this is that for me right now. This is a higher power. Really is like the input that I get, and you know, it's like.
Do you know, sometimes I think the hardest thing to do is let it go. But children of today, they're not like the children when I'm going back to my, because I hear what my grandchildren, how you said about your daughter, what my grandchildren come out with. It's like, what? You know, pretty smart stuff. And I don't even, I ask them how to spell it. You know, I go, what does that mean? And Pappy, you know. But I think what I'm learning, that if we do leave it, and they're at that age of 16, it filters through. Yeah. I'm not saying the mother's at her. I'm not getting on side here. But you've got to let her filter through. And I think children of today, are so more sort of in touch with what's going on, because they can press a button and read it and see stuff. And so much goes on in today's society with divorces, single parents. There's a lot going on. So I think for me, what I do now, once they start, because I'm going to get mullered otherwise, I'm going to get smashed to pieces, and I let it go, and then it doesn't become about me. And I think children like letters,
like
kind
this.
letters, thinking of you, just not listen, do this, just thinking of you. I hope you're well.
Yeah,
you need to talk.
What would it be like to say, what's your daughter's name?
Jess.
Do you know what, Jess? I was wrong.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's
But listen, I can do it because the drive.
There's a struggle there, brother.
I can do it. Listen,
There's a big plate of wood in front of you.
I can do this because the drive to see her. Because every day I pass that house, every day on the motorbike I pass the mum's house, right? And every day I pass the mum's house, before I get to the house, I start thinking about, will she be coming out? Will she, you know, is she going to, you know, it's like a, you know, that type of where you're grieving, you're sort of grieving a long lost. It's not my girlfriend, obviously, it's my daughter, but it's a similar thing where you know, you feel that, and then as I pass the house, I'm like, oh, she's not came out at this time. I don't want to knock on the door because I don't want to. I don't want to push myself, you know. I want to try and do it a different way, but I'll let
Is there
her,
a condition that you'll only talk to her if she forgives you?
No. Listen, I don't. I think.
Okay, so just going from my own experience, right? Yeah. If you can say I was wrong, yeah. Then what you've got to do is you've got to behave differently.
Absolutely true. Behave differently. Amen.
And that's the thing.
That's it.
Yeah.
That you kind of need to.
No shit, Sherlock.
But he's right. He's 100% right.
No, but that's the thing you've got to get in touch with.
I'm sorry, and then do the opposite.
Yeah.
you know,
'Cause I
my
bet as soon as
experience
you
is
see
that
her, you can't wait to tell her what you think.
No.
it becomes
Okay,
what about
little
it
bit,
becomes
brother.
what aboutism. That's what it becomes.
What it is, and I'll tell you what it really is what gets in the way is this.
You.
Me as well,
Exactly.
right? But what gets in the way is my projections also about what kind of information our mum has filtered in along the
Powerless,
way.
brother.
So then
You're
I
powerless.
go into. And I bet you, right, so this is a projection, a fantasy projection onto her of what propaganda she's got
Yeah.
from the mum.
Yeah.
So I'm not really relating to her just in that moment.
Yeah.
I'm relating to a fantasy about the conversations that have been going on.
Which is wrong.
I know.
Because you're not taking.
Because I don't
you're not-
know what's went on.
Yeah, and you're not giving her the credibility.
Yeah, to make her own decisions.
Yeah.
I
Amen.
make her own judgments. Yeah.
And that's and I'll give you
Aye.
a real life example of that. My daughter went to Sheffield University. She turned around and said to me, you know what, Dad, I don't like it. And I'm like, what? What do you mean you don't like it? She says, I've been doing English for years and years and years. I want to do journal. I said, I don't like it here. I want to leave. And I sort of said, just do the first year. Yeah, and then switch, blah, blah, someone else, blah, blah, blah. And then she said, no, I don't like it, blah, blah, blah. So what happened? She went back after Christmas. And now what I said to her, I sort of said, if you don't do it, I'm cutting you off.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah? That's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You
Yeah, you
wait.
get it?
I get it, man. I
You
get it.
wait.
I get it.
Go.
Yeah.
You wait. You'll be
Aye.
all right.
Hang
Go
on.
crack on.
Aye.
So what she did, she said, you know what? Fuck you, basically.
Aye.
She went off, got a job, worked in the Northern Quarter in Manchester behind the bar. The rest of it took me 6 months, towel between the legs.
Aye.
I was wrong.
Aye,
Yeah,
good
man.
man. Good man. Well done. No, good. I mean
It's
it
lovely.
really well
You know
done.
what I mean? And
Well
whatever
done.
you need,
Yeah, you do.
to do what you need to do.
Aye, I get it. I
But
get
Marky,
it.
you've said some good things.
Aye.
When I'm speaking to my daughter, I don't
Yeah.
see. I don't speak to her a lot. Or we. I know that when her mum's talking, yeah. And I reacted. That was a little while ago. And do you know what? Her mum's entitled to have an opinion.
Yeah.
Her mum could be right. Do you know what I mean? And because I can't control that situation. So, but I've learnt now. I'm learning.
Yeah.
So I think we have to go to what does love suggest.
Yeah.
So love
Yeah.
suggests is dad and daughter. What does not what Mark suggests, not addiction or the mother,
Aye.
or not even what your daughter suggests. What does love suggest? It might mean something else, but you got to hear what love suggests. Yeah, you can't let this or your therapy stuff. Now listen, if you do this like that, or you're going to get that, and you know, you're not gonna be in the will. No, but I've said all that. I haven't even got a will.
And you know the mad shit about this is, right immediately after it was my birthday. It was Father's Day and then it was my birthday.
hurts,
no,
Mark.
no card, right?
It
no
hurts,
nothing.
Mark.
So my head was like, so obviously my head obviously, because not everybody's head's less, but we know our heads are less.
Yeah.
I thought, well, that's it. No birthday. She's out of the picture. These houses are all going to go to my son. Right? I mean, it's mad, right?
Yeah.
And I'm making decisions based on it's a lunatic, really. It's making decisions.
Yeah.
But and in reality, that's not the man that I want to be. What behaviour brings me closer to the man that I really want to be is what Tosca just mentioned.
Absolutely.
That's it. The tail between the humility, isn't it? It's humility and going right. Okay, well, there's a lesson, there's a learning in all this, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not God, obviously.
Love you, thinking of you.
Yeah.
It
And
might
that's-
be out of character, and she might rip it up.
Aye.
But at least you've kept your side of the street clean.
Aye.
She might dislike you, Mark.
Aye.
But I'm not being rude
Aye,
when
no,
I say
no.
that. But the truth of the matter is, love conquers all. You got to let it grow. You got to let it exist.
And with that, I think we're going to bring this to an end. Love conquers all. I love that, Michael. Okay, I've been Tosca.
Blessed with Matt here.
I've been Tosca.
Thank you.
You've been
No, thanks.
Mark. I've been Mark Dempster. Yeah.
I've been
been-
Matt.
Aye.
You've been.
Sorry,
Who have you been?
Michael.
And you've been.
Steve.
And I think that brings us to the end of the Gritty Nitty Podcast, Volume 9, and I'm pretty sure we will see you soon. And we sorted Mark out, of course.
Aye, thank you, guys. How much do I owe you?
It's always about money.